Hey, Mr. Ben, do you hear us?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Hey, man, we are live. You are good to go.
Awesome. Well, hey, I appreciate you, Daniel. Uh, hey, this is an exciting one. You could tell my background's a little different here than it normally is. I'm actually in Las Vegas right now, in the Vegas Convention Center at a show called AHR, which is an HVAC and facilities centric show. Get to learn a lot about some of the great things happening in the industry, but want to focus really today on our conversation continuing from what we talked about last week, which was how to establish a baseline for your AI visibility. But today we're going to dig in a little bit deeper into actually how to create content for AI ingestion, right? So, what are some of the best practices? What are some of the things that they look for? And how do we do that? And what are some of the best practices there? So, I've got sort of a six step plan that we'll walk through today. I've got some examples and stuff that we'll have Daniel walk through as well. But really, the first step is to, after you've established that baseline, like we talked about last week, is to identify the questions and topics that you want to own. So think about your audiences, right? Whether it's your buyers, whether it's your resellers, channel partners, vendors, whoever. What are some of the questions and topics that they ask the most? So at a show like AHR, for example, we have a lot of people asking about industrial cooling for data centers and what does that mean? And what are some of the benefits of having an on-site power generation system versus trying to offset that and you know outsource some of that power, or do we need our own chillers on site? How many do we need our own microgrids, things like that. So for you, your vertical may not be industrial HVAC, but let's say you're in the AV industry, right? You may have people asking what some of the benefits are of uh, specific mounting solutions versus another, right? You may have people asking questions about, should I make the full transition to AV over IP, or do I need a more baseband solution? Now, in every industry, people are asking those questions, right? Identify some of those. And one of the great ways that I love to do that too, and we talked about it last week, is actually the AI Insights tool inside of MarketScale Studio. You could go and you could see how you're ranking in specific prompts and what questions people are asking in those areas. Now, the second step after you identify those specific questions and topics that you want to own is to actually decide on the content format. This one's very, very important, right? Because this is the first step in actually making sure that that content gets indexed. So, do I want a 90-second social clip? Do I want an FAQ page on my website? Do I want to do teaching, training, learning, development? Do I want product specific stuff or sales enablement? Usually, kind of depending on where you end up wanting to publish, that will drive a lot of those conversations, right? So let's say I'm at a show like this and I want to publish LinkedIn content. Well, probably what I'm looking for is short burst, social, short form style, maybe even vertical content. It's going to perform a little bit better on social channels. But if I have just released a new product, I want my engineer to do product training, it's okay for me to do a little bit longer form, right? Or maybe I want to have FAQs where people are asking specific questions. You have the ability to have sort of different content types and pieces there. Now, the third step, and Daniel, I'll have you go ahead and pull up the screen real quick, and we're going to show sort of the request and survey functionality here, because step three is something that allows you as the marketer to become the conductor. That's to source real experts and prefer those real specific answered questions versus kind of the generic marketing summaries. What do I mean by that? Well, especially as we really get into super granular topics about mounting and IT and HVAC and healthcare, all these different places, most of the time, whether we want to admit it or not, the marketer is not necessarily the subject matter expert for that. So the way that I source a lot of those questions is actually through the request and survey tool that Daniel's showing right now. So I might say, hey, I know that Scotty or Susie in XYZ industry is far smarter than me about the specific topic or problem that I want to help answer and create content for. So what I'll do is I'll actually go into this survey tool and I'll go ahead and create a couple of prompts in here. So I might click add a question here, and I might say, usually my first question is going to be, hey, would you say and spell your name? Because we want to make sure that we get everything spelled correctly for you in the lower third. But I might also secondarily ask a question and say, what are the top three challenges that you're facing as a local integrator right now? Or I might say something like this, you know, what are some of the benefits of deploying Cat 6 versus Cat 5? Is there a cost savings? How am I going to future proof? Things like that. Or, as Daniel keeps typing, I'm going to keep talking here. Or you may be at a trade show like this, right? And this is a great place to not only have people record a video, but to actually click upload content. So when you click upload content, this may be something that folks already have on their phone, their desktop. So imagine you're at a show or an event like this, all the pictures, all the video that I've captured on my phone over the week, you can request that they've uploaded that, right? Because they may have answered that question before. They may have some great content that they've sourced and things like that. Now, the great thing about this survey is that you could do a couple of things with it. So if I want my subject matter experts, if I want to make it as easy as possible for my subject matter experts, I can either send this directly to their email via the MarketScale Studio platform, which is what I do, or whenever you click next there, you can copy a link. So Daniel, if you go ahead and click next, we'll just kind of show them here as a little template. You can create that shareable link. This is really, really important to make things easy for people, right? And this is, I typically will prefer creating that shared link because it's just easier for me to share. I can put it on social, I can create a QR code, I can text it to somebody if I need to. But this is going to be one of the easiest ways for your subject matter experts to respond in a way that doesn't take them more than 4 or 5 minutes and things like that. So as you're asking these questions, whether you want to do kind of a batch survey where you have 5 or 6 different questions that you want people to go in and record, maybe you want to create different surveys for different topics. I've found that it's much easier to deploy that through the shared link versus not doing that. And Daniel's kind of showing what that actually looks like. And obviously, you can add things like a description, you can add your own custom T's and C's, logos, stuff like that to make it branded for you. Because I know a lot of people watching this, and we even talked to some people last week that were saying, "Hey, I love the survey tool. Can I brand it? Can I add custom things? How do I build it? In a way that's a little bit more branded for me." There are ways to do that, and Daniel kind of demonstrated that. But this is sort of what the end user experience will look like. So you want to make it as simple as possible for that subject matter expert, that partner, that client, whoever, to create. So it'll say, "Hey, whether I'm on my phone, whether I'm on my webcam, look, here's a couple of options. Do you want to record something? Just click record here," right? It makes it really easy for them. Now, for you as the marketer, you as the person who requested that, it's very, very important to make that easy because it's going to lower that barrier of entry for folks. But the good thing is, as soon as that content is submitted, that immediately comes back into my inbox, right? So if I'm using MarketScale Studio or whatever platform, that'll come back to me. I have a chance to approve it and then have that edited. So kind of my next step would be to jump in the media studio, have our team pull it together. Maybe I've got a certain look and feel I want to select and choose. So I'll use that and have that edited. But you may have an in-house team, you may have whatever. So the next step becomes very, very important, right? So obviously you've created that content, you've got a nice, let's just call it, 3, 4 videos of 90-second FAQs. The next step is to actually publish that answer on owned, earned, and trusted channels. So what do I mean by that? First of all, the first thing, I'll kind of go ahead and lay the groundwork here. I'm I'm publishing that on places that I own and that I know that people are looking, right? So I'm going to start with my website because I want AI to index that and use that as a trusted resource. But I'm also going to post it where people are, right? LinkedIn channels, social channels, YouTube, places like that where people are searching for the answers. And what'll happen, because those websites are already trusted resources, AI will start to pull those and index those and say, "Hey, you know what? We see that there's this video on YouTube that answers this very specific question that our people are asking in the LLMs." So now, as you publish on some of those trusted sources and own channels, AI will start to index. Now, the cool thing about having that content is that now you can kind of reuse it, repurpose it, right? So maybe you actually did a 5, 6 minute product demo or something like that. Well, now the hack for you is, now that you've got that sourced, is you can repurpose that into different pieces of content. So step 5 is break that asset into reusable pieces. So maybe you want to do, a quick little out of that 5 minute product demo. Maybe you want to take a 90-second snippet and put it on social, right? So you'll have a version on your website, you'll have a version on social, and maybe you even want to send it out to some partner channels. So now, whether it's that product demo, that subject matter expertise, that customer testimonial, that single piece of content now becomes 5 or 6 pieces of content that lives in all of these different channels. So that's one way that you can additionally kind of publish that and almost hack the system a little bit to create some more value whenever it comes to indexing and GEO. Now, six really is kind of the question that we get a lot, right? What's the ROI? How do I measure the impact? And I'm going to point you back to that AI Insights tool that I use, right? There are a handful of other tools that you could use, but the one that I use is this AI Insights tool, and I'll tell you why. It's built into the Studio ecosystem, right? So this is all really turnkey and easy for you to use, and you can send all your requests and stuff in here. But the AI Insights tool allows me to go in and specifically measure and search for those topics that I want to rank for. So it's not, this generic like, oh, hey, here are a few topics that people in the industry are searching for. I can go in and actually set very granular parameters on how I'm tracking across LLMs, how I'm tracking over time. So if I want to rank for, this specific mount versus another, or, why is it important to have chillers on site at a data center, I can go in and see that. Now, the cool thing, and this is sort of where the process starts to repeat itself, is that based off of those topics, I can actually jump into the recommendations tab over there on the left side, and it'll give me ideas to kind of create more content based off of what I've already created, right? So, what are some questions that other people are asking? What are some best practices that I can use to publish this on my website? So, it becomes very cyclical at that point where I can say, hey, you know what? I've identified these specific topics or questions in HVAC, but maybe we also have a vertical in healthcare. Well, look, now it's going to make some recommendations for you to create some of that in healthcare, and then you just repeat that same process, right? Who are my subject matter experts there? What kind of content do I want to publish? Where do I want to publish it? Things like that. So for me to show like this, I'll make it very practical. So if I'm at AHR, my workflow is a little bit more centered around kind of sending those requests ahead of time. So now I'll know that the specific questions and topics that I want to own actually is the show hashtag, right? So it's AHR 2026. So I want to create a bunch of content centered around that because it's a show recap format. Now, most of that for us will live on LinkedIn. So if I was to use number two here, I would say I want to decide on my content format, which is probably short 60 to 90-second blurbs, deliverables, things like that, because I want that to index on LinkedIn. And I want that to be a shareable piece of content that somebody can click repost on, and then those LLMs will index there. And Daniel, you can pull that down, that screen share down. And then for me, the next step, which is to source the real experts and not necessarily kind of seek out generic content, I'll blast that out to different companies and subject matter experts across the industry. So if I'm asking a very specific targeted question about facilities facilities automation and how that integrates with the security team, I know that at Acuity Intelligent Spaces, I'll send that person a direct request or share that link with them, source that specific piece of content, and then I'll take that and I'll publish it on LinkedIn in this case, or I could publish it on YouTube Shorts or heaven forbid TikTok or whatever, right? So I know that that's going to be published there, and then maybe I want to reuse that not only for quick social content, but maybe that's something that I want to reuse in perpetuity, right? Because it's great content beyond the show. So 6 months from now, I may take a clip of that interview and put that into a larger recap video, or put that into an industry thought leadership piece or something like that. So, and then obviously at that point too, I can track all of my history in the AI Insights tool on how we're ranking for AHR and topics and facilities and things like that. So that's what I'll do is I'll go ahead and share sort of the 6 step plan in the comments here in a second. You'll see it come through, but that's sort of my workflow and sort of my hack to create content that indexes on LLMs and leverages GEO and things like that. Look, the short answer is it's honestly really not complicated, right? You want to create content that answers this very specific question, is canonical content. That's not something that's generic that can be found on a million different places. You want to be able to create that content that really is answering those questions that people are searching for. So that is, I think, a nice bridge between week one and week two, which is okay. Let's establish that baseline, and now let's create some content, because it's very, very important to now, once that content's created, to track it over time. So that'll wrap for us today. I've actually got to go jump in the show here in a second, which I'm pretty fired up about here for day two. But if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Shoot me an email, call, text, things like that. Obviously looking forward to continuing this every week with you guys. It's a good opportunity to dig in a little bit deeper and learn about some of the best use cases for creating some of that content to be indexed by LLM. So appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hey, special thank you to Daniel for running that screen share for us back in Dallas. So, oh, well, there he is. Yeah, there you go. Thank you,
I,
Daniel.
I I can't not pop on the stream at least briefly, but yeah,
Oh,
great stuff
we'll
here.
take it.
And look, hey Ben, I wanted to mention too, for anyone else who wants to dig in even deeper on some of these strategies and best practices, especially around our tool, AI Visibility, we have a workshop Tuesday of next week with our Chief Commercial Officer here at MarketScale, Brandon Morgan. He and I are going to be diving into every little layer of best practices of fine tuning the AI visibility machine so that you can be more intentional with your GEO strategies. So, more of this to come. Had to get that plug in there, Ben. Sorry for the cross promo.
Hey, I love it, man. It's good stuff. And next week I'll be back in office too. So apologies for any short little connection interruptions and things like that as people start to funnel in here in the show. But thanks to Daniel. Thanks to everybody on the team. If you have any topics, ideas, thoughts for future episodes or questions you want to see specifically answered, drop them in. And hey, we may even do a little episode about it. So until then, we'll see you guys next week. Appreciate you so much for tuning in. Thanks.